Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Smart Muslimah podcast. If you're new here, my name is spearheaded and I'm your host. Today I have the pleasure of speaking to students who used to attend the London Academy of Excellence. This is a college in London in Stratford, and it was very interesting. I saw a newspaper article where it said that there had been a lot of Islamophobia at this college. And so I was very interested to find out what is it that the Muslim students had experienced there, and why is it that these students who now no longer study there have launched a campaign called LEA Exposed. And what they wanted, the whole purpose of the campaign is to seek justice for the students and from the college to really expose the Islamophobic experiences faced by many students spanning several cohorts. And it's interesting, I actually have nieces that studied there, and I'm actually from Newham, from that area. So I thought, how can it be that there were so many Muslim students and families in that area, but the practices that they were talking about, the behavior of the teachers and the college, I was so shocked by it. So I really wanted to find out what is it that had been going on. So Assalamu alaikum, Brother Sahil, Brother Misbah, and Sister Mubashira. Jazakallah khair so much for coming on. Well, okay, let's begin. Let's start talking about what the campaign that you started. So Brother Sahil, could you please tell us a bit about how the campaign started?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess all LAE students, I think, went through sort of a common experience of Islamophobia, and unfortunately, a lot of the experiences were bottled up for quite a long time. And then, I guess in February, March-ish of 2021, a lot of alumni, ex-students, took to Twitter and started expressing their experiences, their upset, and sort of what they went through whilst at LAE. Mm-hmm. And we just had a massive response. We had students from all years taking part in that little Twitter bubble, for example. Twitter bubble. And what that meant was, it wasn't just an experience from a certain year. It was a continuous experience all the way back from 2012 to now. And that's when we sort of realized that this is a problem. It's a systemic problem. And then the campaign started taking shape around that. Alhamdulillah, we were fortunate enough that we had a lot of alumni come together. We had a lot of external organizations such as FOSIS, CAGE, MYN, MEND. They came forward pretty quickly and they said, okay, you know what, something's gone wrong here. And as your Muslim brothers and sisters, we need to support you. Yeah. So they came forward and they really helped shape and mold the campaign into what it is today. Of course, the alumni have been the driving force behind it also. So yeah, it's been a long time coming. I think it's been all the way from those tweets in 2021. Mm-hmm. It's been a year of collecting testimonies, doing our research, speaking to various media outlets, and creating a social media campaign, which we then released in March of 2022.
Okay, so Misbah, could you give me an example of what happened? Like, because I think for the listeners, they won't know about this college. But what were the kind of things that they were doing?
So I would divide the experiences or the actions of the senior leadership team into two. So the first problem and onset, what the problem was when they outrightly banned the prayer, the Jumu'ah prayer in our sixth form. So when we did begin initially, there was space within the school to pray, there was accommodation, and there was no issues whatsoever. However, in 2014, a new senior leadership team came, and that's when everything started to change. When that new leadership team came, they, without consultation, without any advice or talking to students or parents, they just banned the Jummah prayer. and they only let us know the day before they banned it. So there was no room for consultation or, you know, solutions or proposals to be put forward. And so the outright ban kind of left us isolated. And, you know, we felt targeted by that move. And so the ban on Jumu'ah prayer created a lot of problems for us. And in response, the students somewhat united, because we weren't going to have that. You know, prayer is a initial part, is a crucial part of our faith. So we kind of organized a walkout, and approximately 150 or 200 students participated in that walkout. We left our classes and we went to a nearby sports center to pray the Jumu'ah prayer. And we all came back late. Most of us had to leave some of our classes early to go to the Jumu'ah prayer. And the senior leadership team, they somewhat realized that, you know, it's not feasible that we kind of ban the Jumu'ah prayer. So after, you know, discussions, meetings, proposals, we actually got a small room. Previously, we were praying in the hall, which were accommodated for sisters and brothers to pray at the same time. But the new room that they gave was incredibly small. Brothers and sisters had to kind of take it in turns to pray. And it also came with draconian rules. So, you know, the sermons that we were given, they were being screened and they were being monitored. Teachers would sit with us and, you know, monitor us praying. There would be a register of who's coming, who's not coming. And so we just felt very targeted. We felt policed by that maneuver. But unfortunately, I wouldn't say that was, you know, the main problem. I think that was more of a symptom of the main problem. And the main problem being Islamophobia at the highest level within the school. There was constant targeting of Muslim students, policing their thoughts, questioning their identity and their religious faith. And I think myself, Mubashir and Sahil can speak about our experiences of Islamophobia, but it was continuous throughout. And what we realized last year when the Twitter storm happened is that we thought that we were the only ones that went through this. So just a year or two of Islamophobia. Yeah. But we came to the realization that this is happening till present, and that this Islamophobic rhetoric by the senior leadership team spans over several cohorts. And so we thought, you know what, enough is enough. Yeah. We need to mobilize, we need to unite, and we need to kind of challenge the systemic Islamophobia that is present at LAE.
And Alhamdulillah, I do think you guys, mashallah, it's so inspiring to hear that you are challenging it, because nowadays it's so easy to just ignore it or think, this is too difficult, or it's not my problem. You know, I was there, it's finished now. But you're saying it's still happening. And Alhamdulillah, may Allah reward you all for taking the time to do this. Mubashira, what had your experience been as a sister in hijab, and what kind of things did you have to put up with whilst you were there?
So like Misbah said, the issue of prayer was just literally the tip of the iceberg. And I think it was the institutional Islamophobia. It was putting in measures or behaviors from the SLT that really sort of made us feel like criminals, like we were less than, and like we weren't worth the respect. So from the moment they started to ban prayers on site, we used to go down and pray under the staircase, because we knew that if we were caught praying, we would have to face the consequences. And some students did, they would pray, and if their teachers were to ever catch them praying, they would literally come to their faces and clap, you know, for them to stop their salah.
Oh my goodness.
It was horrific. And I think some of the experiences for me was also when one of the SLT teachers took me and my friends to his office room to ask us whether we knew about Shamima Begum. And there was a lot of questioning that happened in that room. And we came out feeling like, subhanAllah, we have no relation to this individual. But after she had fled to Syria, somehow we were put under the same bracket as Shamima Begum. And then just every day we felt like we were like walking on eggshells, trying to stay out of trouble, trying to not get caught with our Muslimness, trying to not get caught praying. I know sisters who were asked, when are you going to become a jihadi bride?
Right? Oh my God.
It was awful, because it's not that, you know, they're concerned, it's literally when, like, you know, I know you are, just tell me when. So it was horrific. And I think the way that we survived it was just really just laughing about it. And now that we're talking about it, now that we are going over our experiences, we realize how deep and how Islamophobic those experiences were. I think at the time we couldn't even put a word to it. It was just this constant feeling of frustration for being treated the way we were treated, and being isolated. And then years later, we came to realize, hang on a minute, everything that we've been through, this is what Islamophobia is. There were even times when they got in somebody from Quilliam Foundation to tell us about our religion and about how we should pray. And that was probably the most patronizing experience I've ever been through, for someone to come in to tell me how I should be and who I should be. And it was just overall a really, really awful and toxic environment to be in. And I think the impacts were very long lasting and very traumatic upon many of us.
Yeah, because it sounds like thought police and you know, like Big Brother watching you, but only watching the Muslim students. Because was any other religious minority targeted the way that the Muslim students were targeted?
No. Interestingly, the prayer space was a faith space, right? So it wasn't just Muslims using it. There was a Bible group as well that used to use that room, and they have never faced as much backlash as we did. They weren't asked, when are you, I don't know, joining the KKK, for example, right? It was the Muslim students specifically.
So then what I'm wondering, so when this then started to happen, now I used to be a high school teacher, so I know the power that teachers can have. And I know I've seen teachers bullying students. They can intimidate students. They're in a place of authority. So you guys were, how old are you? You were like 17 to 18-year-olds. So you're young at that age. Did you feel you could, so I'm really much amazed that you guys organized the walkout. That's brilliant. That's pushing back. But then, for example, getting your families involved, did anyone do that to like complain about what was happening?
I don't know about anyone else, and maybe Ms. Sahil, you guys can clarify your experiences. But for me, the school had made me feel like such a criminal, that I didn't think I could share this with anybody. The only people I would share it with was my siblings. And I didn't go as far as telling my parents, because what if I really was the one who was in the wrong? Right?
Yeah.
And it really psychologically really makes you think that just, I don't know, just praying is wrong, being a Muslim is wrong, and what can you do about that? Like, there's nothing that you can do. So we felt really powerless and really helpless at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Just to add to Mubashar's statement, we actually did speak a number of times to the senior leadership team regarding the prayer issue that we had at SLT. You know, we had multiple meetings with SLT, multiple conversations with the student council. And, you know, many people were sympathetic to the cause of bringing back a prayer space within LAE. But every proposal we put forward, every solution we put forward, every conversation we had with the senior leadership team, it always fell on deaf ears. Every proposal of ours was shot down. And so we felt very isolated. We weren't being heard. And so we thought that, you know, this is something that we need to take into our own hands. And so we definitely did try to resolve the prayer issue that we had within LAE. As for the Islamophobic rhetoric and the systemic Islamophobia within LAE, the thing with that is, as you mentioned, we were children back then. We were 16 years old, we were 17. And if we were to file an official complaint about Islamophobia against SLT, then the people that were to investigate the complaint are the very people that we are complaining against. And in no way do we expect justice from the senior leadership team. We don't consider them reliable. We don't consider them trustworthy. An oppressed individual doesn't go to the oppressor expecting justice and fairness from them. And so in our case, we had no trust in the senior leadership team, because the Islamophobic rhetoric was coming from them, and it trickled down to other staff members. And moreover, as I mentioned, you know, at the end of the day, we were children. We had limited knowledge of our rights. We had limited knowledge of the reality of the outside world. And so we felt insecure standing against an elite institution who had far greater power and authority than us. And so we kept quiet, hoping that we'll just get through these 2 years, but however, now as grown adults, aware of our rights, aware of the outside world, we've come out to get justice and put an end to the systemic Islamophobia at the school.
Yeah, and I do think they were relying on the fact that you were young, and also I wonder there's the Islamophobia and there's an underlying racism as well, that the fact that you were children of immigrants, that there is this expectation that Asians, Pakistanis, Bengalis, Indians, we will just stay quiet and put up with. There is this, like, I know, I'm thinking back to when my parents came here, it was this mentality that just stay quiet and just get through it, or don't rock the boat. And I'm sure they were thinking, we can just do whatever we want to these youngsters and they will put up with it. It's like the sheer force of their authority. And I think Muslims from ethnic backgrounds have been putting up with this for a very long time, and either they just assumed you guys would put up with it as well. And also, you're right. Again, schools. I don't work full time in schools anymore because of the the corruption that you do see and the racism that I've experienced. And it really did. When I heard what you guys went through, I thought, gosh, it's so shocking that this is happening it's still happening 2022. So then what happened? So you guys left, and then you were still hearing stories from other students? Was that the case?
Yeah, precisely that. Just one last thing, going back to the last point, and I think this is quite an important point to mention. I think you made a very valid point that a lot of us come from immigrant backgrounds, or parents are first generation or second generation immigrants. And I think they really took advantage of that, because LAE knew itself as one of the better institutions in Newham, and they knew that the parents have worked hard to get their children into that institution, and so are genuinely too scared to rock the boat or too scared to complain, because they don't want their son or daughter to miss out on the Oxbridge or a Russell Group University or the top qualification. So they were too scared of that. But also, LAE used prevent as a beating stick. So anytime you would do something, prevent would be a boogeyman. They would always dangle a prevent referrer in front of you to keep you in line. And that was a very scary tactic. Obviously, 16, 17, 18-year-olds thinking that your whole life could be ruined just because of a prevent referral. You're not likely to speak out. You're more likely to just keep it bottled up, because you don't want to end up on a list, essentially. The other thing that LAE would do is they would actually monitor our social media feeds. So they would monitor our Twitter, and I was told, oh, you need to delete this certain tweet. So anytime students would complain, whether it be through social media or through other people, they were monitored. And when you're monitored to that extent, where you can't even express the injustices that you're facing on social media, you don't expect any justice to come out from that institution.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, one of the main reasons why a lot of alumni, a lot of students kept quiet whilst they were at the institution.
Because, like you said, there's also these are the people who are going to be writing your references and your personal statements for university, because that again is such a scary situation for a young person to be in. That my whole future, again, you're thinking of your future, and what do you think they were hoping to achieve by doing this? Like, what was their end? What was their goal? What do you think?
That's a brilliant question. Mubashara, I think, sums this up well. So I'm going to hand this over to her. She talks about this sort of new wave of this. I think. Okay, well, I'll summarize what I think, and then maybe I'll pass on to Mubashara. So I think what they try to do is they impose their ideals, their version of success, which is void of any Islamic character. and they want to mold you into reflections of themselves. And so they will, at the expense of literally beating any sort of identity, culture, religious expression out of a student, so that they can put you into the 21st century Britain that they think is the correct or modern or civilized society. And I think they think that the only way to success is through their path. So anything else, anything other, is a risk, is a danger, and they don't want their institution to be associated with it. That's my personal view.
Okay, Mubashira, what would you say?
I think Sahil's described it well. I'm going to put the word to it, and I'm just going to outright say it, that it's a form of colonization, 21st century colonial mindset. That's what it is. It's literally, LAE is known as the Eton of the East End. And they come to this poor neighborhood to give these poor children a chance at life, to thrive, to get into Oxbridge, and to do amazing things. But the cost of being able to do that comes down to how much of your Muslimness you are going to strip away. And the more you strip away, the better you are, and the more likely you are to succeed. And that's the kind of environment that we were in. There was no enrichment for our Muslim identity. There was no respect, let alone nurturing our identity. So I think the environment was very much just, if you want to be successful, you've got to get rid of these things about yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to face a lot of problems. And that's what it was. It was either you are Muslim or you're successful.
Yeah, I think that they can no longer colonize our countries, but let's get the kids, the second generation, that if we can, because it's a very neocon way of thinking. And it's amazing that they felt they could get away with it, and that's what's the really shocking bit. That's so brazen, so that no one would push back and argue with them. So Misbah, did you want to add something about your experiences at LAE?
Sure. So I would say my experiences in LAE were difficult and unnecessarily challenging, simply because instead of focusing on our studies and revision, exam preparation, so on and so forth, like any student ought to be doing, we unfortunately, the Muslims, had to constantly battle with LAE regarding the prayer space and the Islamophobic rhetoric that was present. With regards to the prayer space, there was definitely space and facilities available to accommodate for prayer, but we weren't being given that opportunity to pray. As an individual, as a Muslim, I just felt targeted simply because I was someone who was visibly Muslim, someone who was trying to actively bring back the prayer space, and it was just a constant monitoring and targeting. So one example I could give is I was walking down the corridor one day, and the assistant head teacher pulled me over, and with a clear smirk on his face, he asked me, when am I going to Syria? And for me, it was quite shocking. And so I asked a clarification. Why are you asking that question? What does that question even mean? And so he simply shrugged his shoulders, and he said, there's a number of cases of people going to Syria. So I was wondering, when will you be going to Syria? And it's even the way the question is being asked is as if there's an expectation for me to go. When are you going to Syria? And so for me, it was like, I'm just thinking to myself, is he asking me that because I have a beard? Is he asking me that because, I'm a Muslim, I'm a brown man? And so the environment that was created, it was incredibly uncomfortable. And one other experience that I had was after finishing prayer, when prayer was allowed, the same teacher, he took me to his office, he sat me down, and this was after school, and he began interrogating me about my views on the Charlie Hebdo attacks, and again, my views. And so for me, it was clear that he's policing my thoughts. He sees me from the lens of suspicion that, this person is a potential extremist. I need to keep him in line, keep him in check. When in fact, all I wanted to do was, focus on, I come to school to be educated, not to be interrogated and, policed by by the SLT. So the experiences were just uncomfortable, unnecessary, challenging, and Islamophobic at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's it. And it's I'm just thinking I've worked in a number of schools and I worked in with adults as well. And the thought of ever doing this to anyone would not cross my mind. And normal people, even, they do not behave in this way. So this SLT, their behavior is abnormal. But they felt they could do this with impunity. And it does tell you something about the culture at that college. That, like, were there any teachers who helped you guys, like who spoke out or said, look, this is not right, what's going on?
Sorry, let me add on. I know the others, Sahil and Mubashir can give the experience, but just to add on to that question, there was this once incident. So when we were allowed to pray, there was this excuse given that you need supervision whilst praying, which is quite ridiculous because we're just standing and praying. What supervision is needed? And so we actually got one of the staff members to sit with us and, supervise us whilst we're praying. And whilst in the middle of prayer, one of the SLT members, he slams the door open and he shouts at us on top of his voice, that what are you guys doing? You're not allowed to pray. And we weren't doing anything wrong at the time. Prayer was allowed at the time. We had a teacher supervising us. And, he shouted at us whilst we're praying. We're all scared. We don't know what to do. And so we're in prayer in fear. And we just finished prayer, traumatized, confused as well. What is happening? Why are they doing this?
Yeah, doesn't it seem like they would show, like there was this intimidation, and it's like you're trying to criminalize one of the basic tenets of a person's religion. It would be similar to shouting at, you said there was a Bible class, Christians just reading the Bible and you come in and start shouting at them. And it's interesting that the atmosphere in Britain, like, as growing up, like you guys have since 9/11 till now, slowly it's become acceptable to demonize Muslims. You can, like, the fact that to ask you about Syria, that is the most shocking thing to ask a young man, to assume he wants to go and do that. But they felt they could do it, and it just does say something about the atmosphere and the views about Muslims that non-Muslims hold. But Sahil, you wanted to also just share another experience that you had gone through.
Yeah, so much like Misbah, I think we had similar experiences. I think the one that sticks out most to me is an SLT member came to me, took me to a slide, and it would always be sort of they have an aura of interrogation about them. They put you into a room, they question you. It's very intimidating. But so he did that, and he was asking me questions around, so what do you think of the Islamic State? Do you support the Islamic State? And of course, at 16, 17, you're a bit like, why am I being asked this? I'm so confused. Yeah. And I think it wasn't only that, it was, I was part of the school council, and the amount of resistance we got from the SLT to any implementation of a prayer room, a multi-faith room, was just incredible. And that actually led to me having to have one day after, I think it was a school council meeting, I was actually called up to a meeting with the SLT with two SLT members, and they started asking me, okay, why do you take this prayer room issue so seriously? And they were really pushing me to drop this issue. So I think the whole atmosphere was one of intimidation. They wanted to intimidate you out of practicing your faith, out of showing others that it's okay to be Muslim. I think they thought that if we can break one of them, it will break the spirits of all of them.
Yeah, that is it. The ringleaders, you target the ringleaders and the people who are more outspoken and and then the other people will think, okay, I'm just going to stay quiet. The thing is that they underestimate our faith. That's what they don't realize, that they may have no faith, they may be secular, and they just do not get it, that why do we believe so strongly in Islam? Why do we believe it's truth? And why do we adhere? And the thing is, they will never understand it, but they really, in a way, I think they're just messing with the wrong people here, as far as we're never going to give up our faith. It doesn't matter what you do to us. Like, you just think this is happening to you guys. This resonates with what's happening in India at the moment, with them picking on young women and making them choose between their education and their faith. But alhamdulillah, they're not giving up, and we never will, because this life isn't the be all and end all for us. But Mbasha, was there anything you wanted to tell us about the other sisters that you know, what they went through?
I think if I were to start talking about the experiences of the sisters, we would be here forever.
Okay.
But I think overall it was a very, very it had a very damaging impact on our confidence, and sisters who wore the hijab, they felt very insecure about their hijab. There was this one sister who didn't wear a hijab in her first year, and who decided to wear a hijab in her second year. And the moment that she switched from not wearing a hijab to wearing a hijab, she could feel the immediate change in the treatment of that, the way that the SLT was treating her. So she eventually even got referred to Prevent, subhanAllah. So really? That's how severe it was. Yeah. There were other incidents of just blatant humiliation. There was this one classmate of mine who had a lesson, and I think it was a very hot day, and she asked her teacher, Mrs. Is it okay if I move my seat closer to the window? And that teacher just humiliated her in front of everybody and just said to her, why don't you just take off that bedsheet? I think it was the word that she used. So there was like this overall sentiment that, you know, even Muslim girls are oppressed and they don't have voices, and we were oppressed, we were treated like that by the SLT, by some of the teachers as well. And that left a very deep-seated trauma on many of us. So when we left school, we made a pact amongst ourselves that we're not going to talk about everything that's happened here ever again. We're not going to go back to visit these memories because they were that bad. But at the time, we survived through humor, and when we left, we just completely shut it off. We didn't talk about it, we didn't think about it. And I think for me as well, for years, if anybody had asked me, have you ever faced any form of discrimination? I would say, yeah, no, I've never faced discrimination. But only last year, when the Twitter sort of bubble started to take place, I realized that everything that I had gone through was not just Islamophobia, it was institutional Islamophobia. It was constructed in a way to try and strip parts of my identity. So the impact it had on sisters is definitely very damaging.
Yeah, and you never know what that can lead to. You know, people underestimate, unless you go through the experiences that you're speaking about, we cannot understand what effects that has later on, you know, as far as all kinds of things. It's like people, whether it's racism or sexism or Islamophobia, these are not small matters. And that's the thing that people need to realize. It's not just, oh, we just get used to it, or we'll get over it. You don't actually. So alhamdulillah, so you guys decided then that, okay, we are not going to ignore. We're going to, now that we are older and we are more confident and we want to do something. So, and this is for listeners, this is the bit I really want you guys, the listeners, to really pay attention to, that having listened to all what's happened, and it's still happening. That's the other thing that we need to realize. It's still happening at this college, and who knows if it's happening at in other sixth forms and colleges. That Muslims, we can't, although it's so hard, we can't stay quiet. We can't just ignore it. So with the campaign, please tell us, what is it that you hope to achieve?
We have a list of 5 demands on our website, but our demands are essentially an apology. I think that's one of the most important ones, is an apology for how we were treated, a full investigation into the individuals responsible, and then for the individuals responsible to be dealt with accordingly. We want rectification of anything that's happened so far. So that includes putting in rules and regulations to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And we also want a reinstatement of the prayer room that was removed back in 2015. So I think that is the crux of it. That those are, and I think they're fair demands to say at the least. So we would obviously encourage all the listeners to go out there and support the demands. There's a number of ways you can do that. So some of the ways are obviously by signing the petition. If you're an organization out there that's listening to us, is signing the open letter. But I think one of the most effective ways of doing it is by writing to your local MP, to your local council, and making sure that they are investigating and pushing this forward. It's all well and good if 3 or 4 alumni come forward and write to our MP or write to the council. But if the whole community really push this, the council will be under a lot of pressure to investigate what's going on. And alhamdulillah, they have opened a safeguarding review of LEE, so we've got a small win there, but the fight doesn't end there. We need to make sure we get our demands from that safeguarding review, and make sure that the people who are responsible for these injustices are held to account.
I'll be putting the links for so that people could easily find. What's the website? But I will put the link in just so everyone knows.
Oh, you're testing my knowledge here. www.LAE-Exposed, I want to say.
Okay, that's fine. I'll put that in. So for listeners, they can go to the website and they can see these demands that you've got, and I do think they are very reasonable, actually, extremely reasonable, because the thing is that they need to be held to account. That's what it is, that they need to know you cannot treat Muslims like this and just get away with it. And because in Islam we have a very strong emphasis on when we are against oppression, we are for justice, and what we need to realize is when we stay quiet, this is all of our problem. This is one thing I think we all need to realize, that this isn't just your problem. This is our problem. Even if I don't have a son or daughter who goes there or relative, the point is that this is a matter of, if we allow this to slide and let it happen, it will just happen to the next generation. And what effect will it have on our practice of Islam? It will make us frightened. They want that their goal will be achieved of making us feel coward. And the thing is that if you look in Mecca at the time of Prophet ﷺ, isn't this exactly what they did to the first generation of Muslims? And imagine if they had then given up, where would me and you guys be? We wouldn't be Muslim. So we're living in Britain. We're not going anywhere. They would like us to live. I don't know. They would like us to leave. But the next thing is that they want, like you said, strip us of our identity. But we have to push back on this. So on social, what has the response been on social media, Misbah? Has it been positive?
Absolutely. So we've had a number of achievements on our social media. So we've had approximately 2,000 followers on social media since the beginning, which was just 3 weeks ago. Okay. We've had more than 20,000 views on our videos. We've had more than 100 individuals and organizations signing our open letter. We've had a number of meetings with MPs. We've met with the mayor of Newham. We met with Stephen Timms. Okay. We met with councillors. We met with action groups. So we're definitely making progress. And as Sahil mentioned, this is now the thing to mention is this isn't an isolated case. This is a community issue that we all need to get behind. Islamophobia doesn't just exist within LAE. It's not just within Newham or London. Islamophobia is across the UK, and that's a reality we need to come to. Yes. And this is a challenge that cannot be fought alone. We need to, as a community, unite, and we need to gather and mobilize and tackle Islamophobic rhetoric anywhere, and not allow it to get away. I would simply say to your viewers, especially parents, then just imagine your own son or daughter praying on the streets, praying in the rain, praying in the cold, or your son or your daughter being constantly policed and targeted and asked questions about their religion, their identity. How would you feel? Imagine your son or daughter being given detention for simply praying peacefully in a corner. How does that as a parent make you feel? And so these are challenges and difficulties that we need to face, and we need to tackle, and we need to mobilize. We need to come together, because if we let it slide, it will definitely have a knock-on effect on our on generations to come. So it's definitely a moment for us to mobilize and unite.
Yeah,
just to add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to add, you know, if there are any Muslim, I'm sure there won't be, but if there are any Muslim listeners that are still reluctant or hesitant about supporting the campaign, I just want to say, today it was our institution, it was us. Tomorrow it will be either you or your son or your daughter, because LAE is seen as the pinnacle of academia right now. It won't be long before other academies, other schools follow suit, and they start criminalizing Islam.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to stop it now while we still can.
Yeah. And the thing is that, you know, what can hold parents back, or this whole idea that education is so important and you shouldn't, you know, you do whatever you need to become a doctor, an engineer, a dentist. It's like that has become been put so high, and that you think, oh, I'll sacrifice some Islam for the sake of it. But it's not worth it. In the next life, it's not. You're being a doctor, dentist, pharmacist. What will that mean if you didn't show support to Muslims who were the most like the first thing that we will be asked about is our salah? That is why we care so much about it. But they're trying to stop us from doing that. And it really is, you know, we need to stop thinking about you know, I don't want to get in trouble, or, you know, we have rights in this country. The fact that you guys, you're doing all of this within the legal rights that we're given in this country. So there are avenues to pursue, and you guys are pursuing those avenues. And what you just need is the support of the Muslim community. You know, we need to be doing dua for you guys, you know, dua for what you're doing, and then practically helping. You also have is it a launch good? Not a launch good, it's, we can donate as well, can't we, to help? Well, Rashida, what's that you guys are doing?
So at the moment we don't have a fundraising page up yet, just because we're working on the campaign. Sahil, if you want to add anything.
No, so yeah, at the moment we're not fundraising. We are going through political avenues, so making sure that we've got petitions signed. Social media support is another big thing that I forgot to mention as well. That's the basic thing that I think everyone can do. Everyone has Twitter or Instagram, or can send a message on WhatsApp. Just retweeting or liking goes a big way, or sharing on your story, to make sure that, you know, you're not only informed, but everyone around you is also informed.
Yeah. And I think the main thing here is just to not go quiet. You know, that this is, because I know sometimes as Muslims, our attention is taken so many avenues, and we can think, oh, here, this is another like negative story, or I just don't want to hear it anymore. We can get tired sometimes. But the point is that, you know, I've come to the realization that, you know, either you can this is like, either you part of the problem or you part of the solution, you know. And as a Muslim, we have a mentality that we are part of the solution, and that, you know, there's a very famous hadith, I'm paraphrasing, that if you see an evil, you know, what the Prophet ﷺ told us what to do. When you see something bad happening and evil, you can either hate it in your heart, that, you know, well, no, let's go the other way. You change it with your hand. So when you're saying, okay, sharing, you know, following you guys on Instagram, following you on Twitter, what is your Instagram account, by the way? Can you remind me?
Yeah, it's LAE, I think, _exposed. We'll send everything here, because
yeah, inshallah. So yeah, so practical things to do with our hands, you know, follow you guys on Instagram, and if you got in your Twitter account as well, you know, share the posts. So because what it is, like, you guys realize that later that you were going through these experiences, only when you spoke to other people you realize, hold on, we were experiencing Islamophobic behavior here from the SLT. Other students listening to us or watchers, they could be thinking the same thing, that, oh, this is it's just me, this is isolated. But and then they would go, oh, hold on, this is wrong, there's something I can do about it. So they could get in touch with you guys. So, you know, so that's practical things, you know. Then again, doing dua for you for the campaign, and then hating it in your heart. But, you know, and we know that just hating it in our heart is like the smallest thing you can do. So I think we need to, what I'm even just speaking to you guys, it's motivating and inspiring me to speak out more about Islamophobia, rather than just taking the quiet route. And I think the more that we speak, you know, Hamda, that will motivate others to not just take this lying down, inshallah. But as a final parting message, what would you, let's start with Misbah. What would you just like to say to all the Muslims that are listening?
I would say, subhanAllah, when we were going through these difficulties in LAE, we were very alone. We didn't have any support from any organization or any institute or any individuals, and we felt very isolated. But now that alhamdulillah, the campaign has kicked off, I would simply say, I would just urge everyone to support this campaign. And, even signing the petition goes a long way. So don't trivialize any good deed, any action, because sometimes the biggest fire can be caused by the smallest of sparks. And so do what you can, sign the petition, spread our message far and wide, and support it as much as you can, basically.
Okay, Mubashira, what would you like to say?
So much, but I think one of the things I do want to highlight is that the experiences that the students have faced at LAE, they don't just stop the moment you get your results and you've gone off to university or you come out of LAE. These experiences stay with you for a number of years, and it takes a lot for you to overcome that. And for me personally, I know that I'm an average student, but I know that there were many opportunities that I could have gone for, but I just didn't do it because I never wanted to be put in a position where I'd have to choose between my deen and my career, or being able to thrive in some kind of career. So that I didn't realize how much of an impact it had until we started talking about our experiences in this campaign. And I started to look back from the moment I left LAE, all of my life choices were impacted by that one experience. And it takes a lot to stop looking at life through the lens of LAE and just breaking that view and starting to believe that we do have rights. We do have the right to be able to pray, to practice our faith. We deserve respect, and all of those kinds of things. They take a while for you to understand. So if your son or your daughter or your sister or your brother is going through this, you have to come out and make them see that the world isn't a bad place. And that, you have to stop looking at the world through the lens of LAE and those bad experiences that you've had. So we have to protect our own. That's the end goal, isn't it? So ultimately, we do want everybody in the community to support this cause. Like Misbah said, to follow our social media page, to sign the petition, and just do every bit that you can to help the campaign, inshallah.
Inshallah. And Sahil, what would you like to end this on?
I think these two have already done a brilliant job. I don't know what quite else to add. I think one thing that we should say is a massive thank you to everyone that supported the campaign so far and has continued the conversation around LAE. We owe a great deal to the community that has supported the campaign and thus far. But just to really hammer home that the fight's not up yet, it's not done yet. We're just halfway there. We still haven't reached our demands, and for the next bit, it's going to be harder. So we need all the support we can get. So just continuing to support us on social media, our petitions, our open letters. We've got templates, but we've tried to make the job as easy as we can for anyone listening. So we've got templates on our website. So just get in contact, support us with whatever you can. And inshallah, may Allah reward everyone that's supported us and continues to support us.
Ameen. Alhamdulillah. Okay then, well, so I will put the links, and Jazakallah khair for coming on and sharing what's been going, what's happened, and again, may Allah reward you for the campaign that you've started, because it's not easy. And we'll stay in touch, inshallah. Let's end with dua. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Ameen. Okay, inshallah. Take care, and we, like I said, we'll stay in touch. Assalamu alaikum.
Wow.